Haley's curiosity taught her a lesson. Never assume that something is not dangerous.
Alright, my name is Haley. I'm going to be story from when I was about 15 years old. A bunch of us were over at my friend Steve's house, and his parents were away. So it was later at night. We all had like a little beer and we were drinking. And I looked up and I noticed that there was a dial on his wall. And it went from 1 to 12. And I was curious what the dial was for. He said that there was an underground electrical fence that was for his dogs so that they wouldn't run away. And when the dogs had the collar on, they would get shocked if they ran past a certain point. And 1 was very mild shock, and 12 was like the So I decided at that moment that I wanted to know what it felt like to be shocked. I was very curious about that for some reason. I have no idea. So I asked him to go get one of the dog collars for me, and I took it in my hand and I turned the dial down to 1, and a couple of us walked out, and we walked towards the woods, and since it was underground I didn't know where this fence was coming up, and so like the closer we got to the forest, I started getting a little nervous, but I just decided I was more curious than anything, to see what it felt like. So I got near a certain point and I took 1 step and I made this really loud noise. I don't remember this, but everyone with me said I made this noise. I was like this, very, very loud and just kind of like unearthly. And I apparently flew about 5 feet up in the air and landed on the ground. And I came to, everybody was standing around me and they were just, you know, their mouths were gaping open, and I overheard one of them. I was kind of like out of it, and then I started coming to. I heard someone whisper Steve had turned the dial from 1 that I had put it on all the way up to 12, so I got like the strongest shock that you could get. And so when I heard this, I stood up and I walked into the house where he was, and I smacked him across the face as hard as I could, and I think I hit him with my nail because his face was bleeding, and from what I hear, he still has a scar on his face.
Mike's curiosity led him to the question a big life decision.
Okay, I am Mike, 17 years old, live in New York City. Okay, so throughout like life, I've always been bullied, this and that. You know, people have always been like telling me like how like gay I am and all that. I always questioned my sexuality, like me as a male. So later on, like probably since 7th grade, like go back 4 years later, 4 years before I thought I wanted to be a girl. So I was really curious about like I wanted to become a girl, like wanted to get like a sex change. So yeah, so from 7th grade for about 4 years till now, I was going to therapy to get hormone therapy to become a girl. So I would think, like, I was always curious about if I really wanted to be a girl.
Don't get me wrong, if I'm looking kind of dazzled, I see neon lights wherever you walk by. Don't get me wrong, if you say hello and I take a ride upon a sea where the mystic moon is playing havoc with the tide. Don't get me wrong. don't go like fashion. I might be great tomorrow, but hopeless yesterday. Don't get me wrong, if I fall in the mode of passion, it might be unbelievable, but let's not say so long. It might just be fantastic. Don't get me wrong.
No, I want to be a guy now. Because I was able to sit down to them and express myself to them, and they were able to give me feedback that nobody else would ever, like, because they cared. Technically because they cared, and other people didn't care. Technically what happened is I met these people, and because I was so accepted in this society, I realized that it's only because that I wasn't accepted in my other society as a male that people made me believe that I wanted to become a female, and these people accept me as who I am. I mean, as a guy, I enjoy cross-dressing. That's just something I like to do as a hobby of mine. But I'm fine being like a male.